Great Falls, Montana, a city defined by snow-covered streets, quiet neighborhoods, and the sense that danger is always somewhere else. But on the morning of February 6, 1996, that illusion was broken. 10-year-old Zachary Ramsey vanished while walking to school. Witnesses reported seeing him around 7:30 a.m. After that, no one ever saw him again. There was no sign of a struggle, no conclusive evidence, no body, and for years no answers, until one man became the focus of investigators. Nathaniel Bar-Jonah. He lived just blocks from where Zachary was last seen. And while he may have seemed like just another reclusive neighbor, his past told a very different story. Bar-Jonah was born David Paul Brown in Worcester, Massachusetts, in 1957. His violent behavior began early. At just 7 years old, he lured a female neighbor into his family's basement and attempted to strangle her. At 13, he assaulted another child by stabbing him with a pencil and trying to suffocate him. By age 17, his crimes had escalated. In 1975, dressed as a police officer, Brown lured 2 boys into his car. He drove one to a remote location, handcuffed him, beat him, and tried to strangle him. The boy survived. In 1977, he kidnapped 2 boys from a movie theater, bound and attacked them. Again, they escaped. Brown was arrested and deemed mentally unfit for trial. He spent time in a psychiatric hospital, but was eventually released after doctors claimed he was no longer a danger. Just weeks later, he attempted to strangle another boy in a car. This time, he was sentenced to 18 to 20 years in prison. And yet by 1991, he was out. He legally changed his name to Nathaniel Benjamin Levi Bar-Jonah, later telling people he wanted to experience what it felt like to be a Jew and persecuted. That same year, he moved to Great Falls, Montana. When Zachary Ramsey disappeared in 1996, police discovered that Bar-Jonah not only lived nearby, he had no clear alibi and a record that matched the profile of a serial offender. But it wasn't until 1999, during an investigation into separate child sexual abuse allegations, that authorities finally searched his apartment. What they found inside shocked even veteran investigators. There were children's clothing items that couldn't be linked to any known victim, photographs of young boys, a bone fragment believed to be human, a freezer full of wrapped packages of unidentifiable meat, and in the most disturbing discovery, a handwritten journal filled with coded entries that investigators interpreted as detailed references to kidnapping, torture, and cannibalism. The entries contained phrases such as "little boy pot pies," "lunch is served on the patio with roasted child," and "little boy stew." These weren't euphemisms. Investigators believed they were literal. Bar-Jonah also regularly hosted backyard barbecues for his neighbors. He served meat he claimed was venison or moose, but he had no hunting license, no record of ever hunting, and no friends who recalled him doing so. Some neighbors even commented that the food tasted strange, rubbery, or just off. When asked what it was, Bar-Jonah would smirk and say it was a secret. The theory investigators could never prove, but couldn't ignore. He may have been serving human flesh to his neighbors. Forensic testing on the meat was inconclusive. Some samples were too degraded to analyze. Others were confirmed as beef, but not all could be identified. In 1999, Bar-Jonah was arrested. He was charged with multiple counts of child sexual abuse, kidnapping, and attempted murder. He was also charged with the murder of Zachary Ramsey. But in a twist, the murder charge was dropped when Zachary's mother testified that she believed her son might still be alive. Without a body or definitive forensic evidence, prosecutors focused on the charges they could prove. Bar-Jonah was convicted and sentenced to 130 years in prison without the possibility of parole. He died behind bars in 2008 of heart failure. He never confessed. Zachary's body was never found. And to this day, his disappearance remains an open case. The true extent of Nathaniel Bar-Jonah's crimes may never be known. How many others did he harm? How many children never came forward? And did a quiet neighborhood in Montana really share a meal with a monster? The questions remain, but the answers died with him.
Issei Sagawa was born in Kobe, Japan in 1949, premature, frail, and barely expected to survive. so small he could fit in the palm of his father's hand. Raised in privilege as the son of a wealthy industrialist, Sagawa grew up surrounded by books, art, and isolation. He was quiet, intelligent, and deeply introverted. But from early childhood, he harbored disturbing fantasies, visions of cannibalism, of consuming the flesh of Western women. These thoughts weren't fleeting. They were persistent, vivid, and deeply rooted. As a teenager, his behavior grew increasingly deviant. He committed acts of bestiality and later admitted to feeling sexually aroused by the idea of eating human flesh. His fantasies were no longer confined to imaginations. They were beginning to shape his actions. His first known attempt came while studying at Wako University in Tokyo. Sagawa followed a tall German woman to her apartment, broke in with the intent to kill and eat her. But she woke before he could act. He was arrested, but not for attempted murder. He was charged only with attempted rape. The case never went to trial. His father reportedly paid a settlement, and the incident was quietly swept away. But the compulsion didn't fade. In 1977, Sagawa moved to Paris to pursue a PhD in literature at the Sorbonne. There, his fantasies escalated. On June 11, 1981, he invited Renée Hartevelt, a Dutch student, to his apartment under the pretense of translating poetry. She was cultured, kind, and trusting. As she read aloud, Sagawa retrieved a rifle and shot her in the neck. What followed was a grotesque ritual. He engaged in necrophilia and cannibalism, consuming parts of her body over several days, documenting, be processed with photographs and notes. He was arrested shortly after attempting to dispose of her remains in a suitcase left near a park. He confessed immediately. French authorities declared him legally insane, and he was institutionalized. But in 1984, he was deported to Japan. There, psychiatrists found him mentally competent, but due to sealed French court documents, Japanese authorities were unable to prosecute. He was released after just 15 months. In the years that followed, Sagawa lived freely in Japan, becoming a disturbing public figure. He wrote books, gave interviews, and appeared in media projects, often discussing his crime with chilling detachment. Despite the horror of his actions, he remained a subject of morbid fascination. Issei Sagawa's story is not just one of obsession and violence. It's a haunting example of how justice can falter and how society can turn a monster into a spectacle.